Chapter 1. On their 5th anniversary, the day Serafina Caldwell brought Ethan Blackwood home to meet her parents, he gave her 2 gifts. The first gift, he tied Serafina's father to a chair and, right in front of the old man, ripped her clothes apart. The second gift, he deliberately left the front door open, allowing her mother, who had Alzheimer's, to wander out. It was pouring rain. As her mother stumbled onto the road and was hit by a truck, her father was still bound to the chair, forced to watch his daughter being violated. Her father broke down, sobbing hysterically. He snapped the ropes in a mad frenzy and leaped from the 23rd floor balcony. His blood splattered into a sizzling pan of oil at a breakfast stall below. Overnight, Serafina lost both her parents. She knelt in a pool of blood and asked Ethan why. He just sneered, tilting her chin up. "Serafina, did you really think I loved you? I came for revenge." It turned out that 10 years ago, a medical accident had occurred. His father had died on her father's operating table, and his mother had taken her own life in grief. So he had spent 5 years meticulously weaving a web of lies, a romance scam, just to make her taste the agony of losing her entire family. Afterward, he imprisoned and tormented her. She tried to kill herself 99 times. He saved her 99 times. He said they would torture each other until they grew old. But he didn't know that during the year they were most in love, when he desperately needed a heart transplant, she had secretly signed the donation forms. Now a mechanical heartbeat in her chest, and it had only 7 days left before it stopped for good. Serafina stood at the villa's entrance, clutching the diagnosis. The words "artificial heart failure" burned her eyes. The doctor's voice echoed in her ears. 7 days at most, prepare yourself. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The laughter inside abruptly stopped. Ethan Blackwood was lounging on a leather sofa, swirling a glass of red wine. He was surrounded by 4 or 5 young women, her cousin, her other cousin, her best friend, her colleague. They were all dressed in sexy lingerie, their faces plastered with fawning smiles. "You're back," Ethan glanced up, his lips curling into a cruel arc. "Perfect timing. The game is just getting started." Serafina's nails dug into her palms. For months, Ethan had pursued and slept with every woman close to her, all to watch her break. Now, every single one of them was hopelessly in love with him. "You have 1 minute." Ethan set down his wine glass, his voice laced with ice. "Whoever makes her cry first gets to be my permanent bed warmer." The girl's eyes lit up, and they scrambled toward Serafina. Her cousin was the first to lunge, her hand swinging hard across Serafina's face. With a sharp crack, Serafina's head snapped to the side. Through the stinging pain, she suddenly remembered her birthday last year. This same cousin had presented her with a homemade cake, her eyes sparkling as she said, "I hope you'll be happy forever, Serafina." When the second slap landed, blood trickled from the corner of Serafina's mouth, dripping onto the bracelet she had given her cousin, a graduation gift she had saved for 3 months to buy. "That's 15 slaps, why isn't she crying yet?" the cousin asked, panting as she looked back. Ethan narrowed his eyes, enjoying the show. "Next." The moment he spoke, her other cousin grabbed a fistful of her long hair and brutally dragged her into the kitchen. Pain seared through Serafina's scalp, but in that moment, she remembered when her cousin was being bullied in college. It was Serafina who had taken an overnight train to defend her. Now, the same girl she had fiercely protected was forcing her face into a basin of scalding, chilly water. Arg! The burning liquid scorched her eyes, and Serafina's body convulsed in agony. She gripped the edge of the counter so tightly her nails split and bled. Boring, Ethan glanced at his watch. Next, her best friend produced a set of sewing needles and began pricking them, one by one, into her fingertips. The excruciating pain, sharp and deep, made her vision go black. In a daze, she saw her sophomore year, when this friend was hospitalized with a bleeding stomach from drinking after a breakup. It was Serafina who had stayed by her bedside for 3 days and nights. "Time's up," Ethan's voice was as cold as a blade. "Last chance." As the final girl ran downstairs carrying a cardboard box, Serafina's heart nearly stopped. That was the box she kept hidden under her bed. It contained her parents' belongings. "No," she finally screamed. But it was too late. The girl smiled as she smashed a photo frame on the floor, sending glass shards flying. Her father's watch was stomped into pieces, her mother's comb snapped in two. When the silk scarf her mother had cherished most was ripped to shreds, Serafina's tears finally hit the floor. "I win," the girl ran excitedly to Ethan. "Ethan, from now on, I'll be the only one by your side." Ethan laughed, then viciously gripped her chin. "How naive. Anyone associated with Serafina Caldwell disgusts me. Why would I ever want any of you?" He ruthlessly pressed the call button. "Throw them all out." The bodyguards dragged the screaming girls away. Serafina knelt amidst the wreckage, her trembling fingers gently tracing the fragments of her parents' mementos. She picked up half of a faded family photo, her mother's warm smile still visible. "Ethan Blackwood," she cried, clutching the broken items, her voice torn with grief. "If you're the kind of person who can't love anyone, then you should have never gotten close to anyone in the first place." "Who says I can't love anyone?" Ethan sneered. Just then, the main door opened. A girl in a white dress walked in, pulling a suitcase. "Ethan, I brought my things. Which room am I in?" Ethan's expression instantly softened. He wrapped his arms around the girl, affectionately kissing the top of her head. "With me, of course." His arm around the girl's slender waist, he turned back to Serafina, his eyes once again freezing over. "Let me introduce you. This is Phoebe Lake, my fiancée. Remember that car crash 3 years ago? I was on the verge of death. It was Phoebe who saved me, who gave me her heart so I could continue my revenge against the Caldwell family." "You said I couldn't love anyone?" Ethan pulled Phoebe closer, his gaze fixed on Serafina. "Now I'm going to show you exactly how I love someone." At his words, Serafina's entire body trembled. Shock, rage, pain, despair. A tidal wave of emotions crashed over her, threatening to drown her. She bit her lips so hard she tasted blood, the sharp tang jolting her back to reality. And then she laughed. She laughed so hard her body shook, laughed until she coughed up blood, laughed as fat tears splattered onto the floor. How ironic. She had given him her heart, yet he was treasuring someone else's as his most precious possession. When she signed the donation papers, the doctor had repeatedly assured her the donor's information would remain confidential. She never imagined it would lead to him making such a mistake. But she wouldn't explain. What was there to explain? That the heart beating in his chest was hers. That because of him, she only had 7 days left to live. 2 lives from the Caldwell family, 2 lives from the Blackwood family. The sea of blood and hatred between them had long ago severed any possibility of a future together. Chapter 2. That evening, Ethan Blackwood knocked on Serafina's door. "Phoebe wants chicken soup." "Go make it." Serafina lowered her gaze and walked silently to the kitchen. Resistance was futile. She had learned to obey long ago. In the kitchen, she mechanically prepared the ingredients. The cold water ran over her hands, making her fingertips numb. She suddenly remembered how Ethan used to love her soup. He would always wrap his arms around her waist from behind and whisper, "My wife is such an amazing cook." The water in the pot bubbled, the steam blurring her vision. Serafina wiped the corner of her eye, unsure if it was from the steam or a tear. 3 hours later, she stood before the master bedroom with the prepared soup and knocked lightly. "Come in," Ethan's voice called from inside. Pushing the door open, Serafina saw Phoebe leaning against the headboard while Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, peeling an apple for her. He had a particular way of peeling apples, creating one long, continuous peel. It was a skill he had once learned specifically for her. "The soup is ready." Serafina placed the bowl on the nightstand. Phoebe lazily picked up the spoon, took a sip, and immediately frowned. "It's too salty. Are you trying to kill me?" Serafina pressed her lips together. "I'll remake it." When she brought the second bowl, Phoebe tasted it and pushed it away. "It's bland as water." "Do it again." By the time the third bowl arrived, Phoebe shrieked the moment her fingers touched the rim. "How am I supposed to drink this?" "It's scalding." She violently flung her hand up, sending the entire bowl of boiling soup splashing onto Serafina. "Ah!" Serafina cried out in pain as a large red patch instantly appeared on her chest. "Ethan," Phoebe clutched her slightly reddened fingers, her eyes welling with tears. "It hurts." Ethan's face darkened, and he kicked Serafina away. "Are you looking to die?" Serafina stumbled back, her back slamming against the wall. The pain made her vision swim. "It wasn't me," she knocked it over herself. "Shut up," Ethan cut her off, his eyes menacing. "Still trying to argue?" He pressed the call button, and 2 bodyguards appeared at the door instantly. "Lock her in the walk-in freezer for a day and a night," Ethan ordered coldly. Watch her closely. Don't give her a chance to kill herself." As Serafina was dragged away, the last thing she saw was Ethan tenderly holding Phoebe's hand, gently blowing on her fingers. The moment the freezer door shut, a biting cold pierced through her. Serafina curled into a corner, her teeth chattering uncontrollably. The cold slowly seeped into her limbs, and her consciousness began to fade. In a daze, she felt as if she had returned to 3 years ago. She had been hospitalized for acute appendicitis, and Ethan had abandoned an international conference to fly back overnight. The doctor said she needed rest, so he stood guard outside her room for 3 days and 3 nights. Even the nurses said they had never seen a man so worried about his girlfriend. Serafina. Serafina, in her delirium, she thought she heard Ethan's voice, laced with a panic she had never heard before. A hallucination. It had to be. The man he was now would never be so anxious for her. When she woke up again, the sharp smell of antiseptic told her she was in a hospital. She heard a doctor's serious voice nearby. "Mr. Blackwood, Miss Caldwell's condition is extremely poor, especially since she previously underwent a major." "Doctor," Serafina suddenly interjected, her voice hoarse. "I'm well aware of my own condition." The room fell silent. Ethan stood by the window, his expression unreadable against the light. "As long as she doesn't die," he said, his tone detached. "You don't need to tell me the rest." "I don't care." Just then his phone rang. Serafina watched his expression soften instantly. "Phoebe, it's okay, I'm just paying the bill. I'll be right there with you." After hanging up, Ethan left the room without a backward glance. Serafina struggled to pick up her phone and opened her social media feed. Phoebe had just posted an update, a photo of Ethan watching over her by her hospital bed. The caption read, "Just a tiny burn, and someone's so nervous he stayed up all night watching over me, he wouldn't even leave if he didn't have to go pay the bill." Serafina stared at the tender look in Ethan's eyes in the photo and understood everything. She had only been brought to the hospital as an afterthought. She touched her chest, where the artificial heart gave a faint thrum. 6 days. Her life's countdown was down to 6 days. Chapter 3, with 5 days left, Serafina was discharged from the hospital. She dragged her weak body out of the main entrance, only to run straight into the last person she wanted to see. Ethan stood beside his familiar black Maybach, his arm around Phoebe, his eyes as cold as if he were looking at a stranger. "Get in," he commanded, his voice like ice. "We're going to see my parents." Serafina's fingers clenched the hem of her clothes, her knuckles turning white. She knew all too well what awaited her. The car headed toward the cemetery, on the outskirts of the city. Along the way, Phoebe snuggled in Ethan's arms, giggling as she fed him pieces of fruit. Serafina sat in the passenger seat, watching their intimacy in the rearview mirror, a dull ache spreading through her chest. When they reached the cemetery entrance, Ethan got out first. As Serafina moved to follow, she froze at the sight before her. From the entrance deep into the cemetery, the entire path was paved with red-hot coals, glowing with a terrifying light under the sun. Ethan held Phoebe close, his voice chilling. "Serafina, your family is a family of sinners. Your parents are dead, so you will atone for their sins." He pointed to the path of coals. "Kneel on it, bow 9 times for every 3 steps. Crawl to my parents' gravestone and repent." Serafina's legs trembled. She knew that refusing would bring a fate far worse. The moment her knees touched the coals, the smell of burning flesh filled the air. The excruciating pain nearly made her black out, but she could only clench her jaw and inch forward. The roar of an engine sounded behind her. Ethan's car followed her at the slowest possible speed. The window was down, and she could clearly see him and Phoebe with their fingers intertwined, could see him kissing Phoebe's fingertips. 9 bows for every 3 steps. Each movement felt like being branded on a hot iron plate. Serafina's knees were a mess of blood and burnt flesh, her palms charred black. Sweat mixed with blood sizzled as it dripped onto the coals. By the time she finally reached the gravestone, Serafina was on the verge of collapsing. Through her blurry vision, she saw Ethan standing before the grave with Phoebe. "Mom, Dad, I've found the love of my life." His voice was unbelievably gentle. "I brought her to meet you. As for the one who killed you, I've already taken my revenge." Phoebe dutifully placed flowers on the grave. "Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, rest assured, I will take good care of Ethan." "Kowtow," Ethan suddenly said, turning to Serafina, his eyes instantly cold again. Serafina struggled to lower her body, her forehead hitting the ground hard in front of the tombstone. "Get out of my sight," Ethan spat, then turned and left with Phoebe in his arms. On the way back, a heavy rain began to fall. Serafina dragged her broken body, moving one step at a time. With every step, the rainwater washed over the wounds on her knees, causing them to sting mercilessly. It was dark by the time she finally limped back to the villa. Ethan was in the living room, reading a document. He looked up at the noise and saw her disheveled state. A strange glint appeared in his eyes but was quickly replaced by indifference. "Tomorrow is Phoebe's birthday," he said, closing the file, his tone flat. "I'm throwing her a grand party. You'll organize it." Serafina stood frozen. "Do it just like you once described your dream wedding," he added, a cruel smile playing on his lips. A sharp pain pierced Serafina's heart. She had once described her dream wedding to him countless times: a champagne tower, a hall filled with white roses, a band playing her favorite song. And now, the wedding she had longed for was just an ordinary birthday party for Phoebe. "Don't waste time," Ethan frowned, tossing her a tube of ointment. "There can't be any mistakes tomorrow." With that, he turned and walked away. The ointment fell to the floor. Serafina picked it up and threw it in the trash. She dragged her battered body and began to decorate the banquet hall, working through the night. The rain outside never stopped, just like the tears she could no longer shed. Chapter 4, the lights of the birthday banquet were dazzlingly bright. Serafina leaned against a pillar in the corner, listening to the guests murmur among themselves. "Mr. Blackwood truly spoils Miss Lake, spending over $100 million on a mere birthday party. Of course. I heard Miss Lake saved his life. Compared to that Serafina Caldwell, this must be true love, right?" The guests' chatter reached her ears clearly. Serafina took a sip of water, her face impassive. The artificial heart in her chest emitted a faint hum. When it was time for gifts, Phoebe was the center of attention, showered with presents. The gifts from Ethan were each more extravagant than the last, a limited edition Hermes bag, custom-designed jewelry, the deed to a private island. "Thank you all for the wonderful gifts," Phoebe said with a sweet smile, her gaze suddenly landing on Serafina in the corner. "But it seems someone hasn't given me a present yet." All eyes turned to Serafina. She tightened her grip on her water glass, her knuckles turning white. "Oh, well, I won't make it difficult for you," Phoebe said, feigning generosity as she waved her hand, but her eyes were fixed on Serafina's neck. "That emerald necklace you're wearing is quite beautiful. Why don't you give it to me as a birthday gift?" Serafina's hand instinctively went to the necklace. Ethan had given it to her years ago, telling her it was a Blackwood family heirloom, meant only for his future wife. That day, he had knelt on one knee and promised to love her for a lifetime. Looking back now, it was all just a meticulously crafted lie. "Fine." Serafina calmly unclasped the necklace and handed it to Phoebe. Ethan's face instantly darkened. "So, whatever Phoebe wants, you'll give it to her?" he asked, his voice cold as ice. Serafina looked at the necklace in her hand and suddenly smiled. Yes, she was about to die. What was there left to hold on to? "Yes," she said, lifting her head to meet Ethan's gaze. "Whatever Miss Lake wants, she can have." A strange flicker of anger crossed Ethan's eyes. "Is that so?" he sneered. "Well, since Phoebe gave me her heart, she's now using an artificial one. I remember your blood type is the same as ours. Why don't you donate your heart to Phoebe?" Serafina froze. Her heart? She didn't have one anymore. And no, Phoebe suddenly grabbed Ethan's arm in a panic. "I don't want her heart, my artificial one just needs regular replacements. She has a feud with your family, her heart is tainted. I don't want anything to do with it." Ethan's expression softened. He gently stroked Phoebe's hair. "You're right, her heart is too filthy, it's not worthy of you." During the cake cutting, as Phoebe closed her eyes to make a wish, the crowd began to chant. Kiss her, kiss her." Amidst the cheers, Ethan leaned down and kissed Phoebe. It was a deep, lingering kiss. Phoebe's arms wrapped around his neck, her body practically melting into his. Serafina turned to leave, but her body was so weak that she stumbled. She steadied herself against the wall and slowly made her way out, the sounds of the cheering crowd echoing behind her. Outside the banquet hall, the night air was cool. Serafina found herself walking toward the lake. The moonlight shimmered beautifully on the water's surface. As she stood by the edge, she suddenly felt a hard shove from behind. Splash! The icy water instantly engulfed her. Serafina didn't struggle. She let herself sink slowly. Water filled her nose and mouth. The feeling of suffocation was overwhelming, yet strangely, it brought a sense of release. Ethan and Phoebe were lost in their kiss until a scream pierced the air from outside the hall. "Someone's in the water, somebody jumped in the lake." Chapter 5. Ethan violently pushed Phoebe away, his eyes frantically searching the crowd for a familiar figure. She wasn't there. Nowhere. His heart felt as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand, and his breath caught in his throat. "Where's Serafina?" he snarled, grabbing a waiter by the collar, his voice terrifyingly hoarse. The waiter pointed shakily toward the lake. I think I saw Miss Caldwell heading that way." Ethan bolted toward the lake like a madman, not even bothering to take off his suit jacket before diving into the frigid water. The visibility underwater was poor, but he forced his eyes open, desperately searching. Finally, at the bottom of the lake, he saw her. Serafina was sinking like a fallen leaf, her long hair fanned out around her, her face a deathly, almost translucent white. She saw him. Through the murky water, their eyes met for a brief moment. There was no fear in Serafina's eyes, no resentment, only a profound, liberating calm. A cold dread seized Ethan's heart. She didn't want to live. Just as his fingers were about to touch her, a piercing cry for help came from the shore. "Ethan, help me, I can't swim." Ethan froze. He glanced back at Phoebe, who had somehow also fallen into the water, then back at Serafina, whose eyes were now closed. After a single second of hesitation, he turned and swam toward Phoebe. Serafina's consciousness began to fade. She didn't feel pain, only cold. This is for the best, she thought. With only 4 days left, it didn't matter if she died now or later. But fate seemed determined to mock her. When she opened her eyes again, the first thing she saw was Ethan's dark, furious face. He lunged forward and wrapped his hand around her neck, his voice like ice. "Serafina, did you try to kill yourself at the party just to ruin Phoebe's birthday and get my attention, or do you really want to die?" Serafina managed a weak, twisted smile. "I wish for death every single moment." "You already knew that, didn't you?" Ethan's grip tightened fiercely, his voice a guttural snarl. "Don't even think about it. With all the bodyguards and private doctors watching you, I could drag you back from the gates of hell itself." His voice was laced with a near psychotic obsession. "You will not die without my permission, remember this, Serafina Caldwell. You will stay by my side and suffer for the rest of your life." The lack of oxygen made her vision darken. Just as she was about to pass out, Ethan released her. "You ruined Phoebe's birthday party," he said coldly. "So you'll make it up to her with a proposal. Tomorrow, you will plan it personally. If you disappoint me again, you know the consequences." Serafina coughed violently but still managed a soft, "all right." Her compliance only seemed to enrage him further. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Serafina didn't rest that night. She forced her weakened body to work, personally setting up the scene for the proposal. The venue was decorated with extravagant luxury. Light from crystal chandeliers bathed the grand hall, and a path of rose petals, which Serafina had laid out by hand, stretched from the entrance to the central stage. She stood in the shadows of a corner, watching as Ethan led Phoebe by the hand down the aisle. Phoebe wore a wedding dress in the exact style Serafina had once dreamed of, her smile radiant and captivating. Ethan, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, exuded an air of refined elegance. "Phoebe," Ethan knelt on one knee at the center of the stage, presenting a dazzling diamond ring from a velvet box. "Marry me. I will love you forever and cherish you for the rest of my life." His voice was incredibly gentle, his eyes fixed solely on Phoebe. The surrounding guests erupted in cheers. Say yes, Serafina stood at the very back of the crowd, clapping mechanically along with everyone else. Her lips moved silently, echoing the chant. Say yes, say yes. Phoebe's face was aglow with happiness. Just as she was about to accept, Ethan, for some unknown reason, suddenly pulled the ring back. His gaze subconsciously drifted to Serafina in the corner. Seeing her emotionless expression, his eyes darkened. Ignoring the bewildered looks from the crowd, he turned his attention back to Phoebe, his voice gentle once more. "Phoebe, if you're not ready yet, we can wait. Next time, I will personally prepare an even grander proposal for you." Chapter 6. Phoebe's expression instantly soured, but she couldn't show her anger in front of everyone and forced a smile. Oh, okay. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and quickly stepped out onto the balcony to answer. Serafina hadn't expected the meticulously planned proposal to end so abruptly, but her job was done. She could leave. She had just turned and walked out the main doors when Phoebe furiously blocked her path. Serafina, you must be so proud of yourself, aren't you? Phoebe gripped her wrist, her nails digging into her flesh. You think Ethan called off the proposal because of you? Dream on, he feels nothing but hatred for you. Serafina looked at her calmly. I never thought that. He said he would marry you, and I wish you both well. What more could you possibly want? The only thing I want is for you to be dead. Phoebe suddenly lowered her voice, her eyes glinting with malice. Tell me, if Ethan saw you trying to kill me, do you think he'd finally finish you off? Before Serafina could react, Phoebe let go and threw herself backward. Phoebe tumbled down the long flight of stairs, landing with a sickening thud on the marble floor. A pool of blood quickly formed beneath her. In the hospital corridor, the light above the operating room was on. Ethan grabbed Serafina by the neck, slamming her against the wall. Who gave you permission to hurt Phoebe? His voice was a low growl, forced through clenched teeth. Your father killed my father, and now you want to follow in his footsteps. Have you forgotten all my lessons? Serafina struggled to breathe, too weak to even fight back. Just then, the operating room doors swung open, and a doctor rushed out. The patient has lost too much blood. We need an emergency transfusion. Ethan immediately released Serafina and shoved her toward the doctor. Take hers. Their blood types match. Take as much as you need, just don't kill her. And just like that, Serafina was dragged into the transfusion room. A thick needle pierced her vein, and her crimson blood flowed out through the tube. Her vision blurred. In her last moment of consciousness, she thought she saw Ethan rush toward her, only to stop abruptly and turn to ask about Phoebe's condition. When she woke up again, the hospital room was empty. Serafina struggled to sit up. Just as she was about to get out of bed, Ethan walked in. He strode over and seized her wrist, his grip so tight it felt like her bones would shatter. Since you're awake, you're coming with me, he yanked her forward. Serafina stumbled, and the IV needle was ripped from the back of her hand, leaving a trail of blood droplets. She instinctively tried to pull away. Let go! Ethan ignored her, dragging her down the long hallway. Serafina's bare feet patted against the cold floor tiles, her hospital gown askew. Passing nurses averted their gazes, not daring to look. What are you doing? Ethan, Serafina used all her strength to break free, her nails scratching red lines on the back of his hand. Ethan spun around, pinning her against the wall. Phoebe just barely survived what you did to her. You are going to apologize to her. Now. Serafina trembled, tears streaming down her face. I didn't push her. The security cameras caught everything. Ethan's voice rose to a roar before he quickly lowered it. You were standing at the top of the stairs. You were the only one there when she fell. Serafina suddenly laughed, tears pouring from her eyes. Then kill me. Her voice was raw. Just like my father killed yours on the operating table, just kill me. Ethan's pupils constricted, his grip tightening. Pain caused Serafina's vision to blacken, but she defiantly held his gaze. The standoff was broken by a weak cough from inside the room. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He dragged Serafina into the room without another word. Apologize, he commanded coldly. Serafina bit her lip, refusing to speak. Ethan suddenly grabbed the back of her neck, forcing her to look at Phoebe on the bed. Phoebe lay there, pale and with a bandage wrapped around her forehead. She flinched upon seeing Serafina and shrank back behind Ethan. It's okay, Phoebe, don't be afraid, Ethan soothed, gently stroking her face before turning to Serafina with a snarl. Apologize, Serafina's vision blurred. Watching Ethan protect Phoebe, she was suddenly reminded of a time years ago when she had a high fever. He had stayed by her bedside just like this, changing the cold compress on her forehead all night long. She opened her mouth, but her throat felt blocked. Impatient, Ethan increased the pressure on her neck. The pain finally shattered Serafina's last shred of defiance. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to her knees with a thud. I'm sorry. Her tears splattered on the floor. It was my fault. I shouldn't have pushed you down the stairs. Phoebe's lips curled into a triumphant smile as she snuggled deeper into Ethan's arms. After speaking, Serafina used the bed frame to pull herself up and stumbled out of the room. The hospital gown hung loosely on her frame, revealing the jagged scar on her collarbone. Ethan stared at her retreating back, a strange tightness gripping his chest. When had she gotten so thin? The bones of her shoulders seemed ready to pierce through the fabric, and her wrists were so slender they looked as if they would snap. "Ethan?" Phoebe tugged weakly at his sleeve. "My head hurts." Ethan immediately tore his gaze away, leaning down to check on Phoebe's injuries. When he looked up again, Serafina was gone. Chapter 7. By the time Serafina got back to the villa, she was completely drained. She leaned against the doorframe, catching her breath for a long moment before she could finally make her way to the bedroom. In just those few steps, her vision had gone black several times, and she had nearly collapsed. She spent the entire day in her room, gathering everything related to her and Ethan. Photos, gifts, diaries, every item that held a memory was piled up in the courtyard. When it was time to light the fire, her hands trembled so much that she dropped the lighter 3 times before it finally caught. In the flickering flames, she saw a photo of them in the Maldives. In the picture, Ethan was hugging her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder, his smile warm and adoring. "When we're old, we'll show these pictures to our grandchildren," he had said. Serafina suddenly smiled. As she smiled, tears fell into the fire. On the last day of her life, Serafina pushed herself to go to a funeral supply store. She bought the pastries her parents had loved, along with incense and paper money. The journey to the cemetery felt impossibly long. She had to stop and rest every few steps, her vision repeatedly fading to black. The 2-kilometer walk took her a full 3 hours. "Dad, Mom." She panted, clinging to a tombstone as she slowly made her way up the hill. "Just wait a little longer. I'm coming to be with you soon." Halfway up the slope, Serafina's legs gave out, and she fell to her knees. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Phoebe was there with several workers. Digging up her parents' grave, the headstone had been toppled. The burial mound was open, and Phoebe was holding her parents' urns. "What are you doing?" Serafina scrambled forward, trying to grab them. Phoebe sidestepped her easily, shaking the urns with a triumphant smirk. "Yesterday's apology wasn't good enough. Since Ethan won't touch you, I'll let your parents take the punishment instead." Serafina dropped to her knees with a thud, her forehead striking the sharp gravel. "I'll apologize again. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please, just give me back the ashes." Blood trickled from her brow into her eyes, but she continued to kowtow frantically. "Please, I'm begging you." "All right," Phoebe suddenly smiled. "I'll give them back." A cruel smile twisted Phoebe's lips. As Serafina watched in horror, she slowly tilted the urns. "No," Serafina screamed, her voice tearing from her throat. She lunged forward but grasped only empty air. She watched, helpless, as her parents' ashes were poured into a dog bowl. A large wolfhound wagged its tail excitedly and began to lick greedily. In that instant, Serafina's world shattered. Smack a slap, delivered with all the strength Serafina had left, struck Phoebe across the face. Phoebe stumbled and fell, but a look of triumph flashed in her eyes. As expected, Ethan rushed over in the next second, violently shoving Serafina away. "Serafina," his furious roar echoed through the cemetery. "You're asking to die?" The back of Serafina's head slammed against the broken tombstone, and blood immediately began to flow. Ignoring the pain, she clutched the last few grains of ash in her hand and screamed hysterically. "I am asking to die. I wish I could kill her. Do you have any idea what she did? She dug up my parents' graves and fed their ashes." To a dog, Ethan bent down and lifted Phoebe into his arms, his gaze colder than the winter rain. "Well done." He gently wiped the blood from the corner of Phoebe's mouth. "Even if Phoebe hadn't done it, I would have. When your father killed mine, he should have known this day would come." Serafina sat paralyzed in the mud, watching as Ethan carried Phoebe away. He shielded Phoebe from the rain with his coat, just as gently as he had once held an umbrella for her. The cold rain washed over her face, mixing with her hot tears. Serafina looked down at the specks of ash in her palm and suddenly began to laugh. She laughed until a spray of blood erupted from her lips. Then a second and a third. Blood gushed out like a flood, staining half the tombstone red. Her vision started to blur, but she stubbornly traced her parents' names on the stone with her finger. "Dad, Mom." Her voice was a mere whisper, a final sigh. "Just wait, your daughter is coming soon." Chapter 8. When Serafina opened her eyes, she found herself in a guest room at Ethan's villa. The wound on her head had been bandaged, and her wet clothes had been replaced with a clean nightgown. She raised a hand to her chest. She could barely feel a heartbeat. The door was suddenly pushed open. A bodyguard stood in the doorway and said coldly, "You're awake? Mr. Blackwood said he and Miss Lake are going to meet her parents today. You are to stay here quietly." Serafina didn't answer, simply staring out the window. Today was the final day before her artificial heart failed. Her life would end today. At the thought, a small, relieved smile touched her lips. She slowly sat up. The artificial heart emitted a faint beeping sound, like a final countdown. "I need to go out," she said softly. The bodyguard frowned. "Number Mr. Blackwood said. Just to buy something," Serafina interrupted calmly. "You can come with me." The bodyguard hesitated for a moment before agreeing. After all, Mr. Blackwood's orders were only to prevent her from committing suicide, not to confine her completely. The sun was bright that day. Serafina first went to a photo studio. "A memorial portrait?" the photographer asked, surprised to see such a young, beautiful woman. "Are you sure, miss?" "Yes," Serafina nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "I'll need it today." After the photo was taken, she went to a funeral home and chose the simplest coffin and a burial plot. The plot was right next to her parents. She reached out, her fingers tracing the cold stone of their 2 tombstones. "Mom, Dad, I'm coming to join you soon." Finally, she walked to a third, empty grave where a coffin sat waiting. She smiled faintly and calmly lay down inside it. The sunlight shone on her pale face. She closed her eyes, feeling her heartbeat grow weaker and weaker. "Mr. Blackwood," one of the bodyguards stammered into his phone. "Miss Caldwell, she's lying in a coffin." Ethan's icy voice came through the line. "Put her on." The bodyguard held the phone to Serafina's ear. "Serafina, what kind of drama are you pulling now?" Ethan's voice was thick with suppressed fury. "You think lying in a coffin is going to kill you? Are you planning to bash your head in or suffocate yourself? Let me tell you one last time, with my men watching you, you will never die." Serafina could feel her heartbeat fading, her breathing becoming shallow. She smiled faintly. "Ethan, this time you might be disappointed. I'm dying. And you can't stop it." Ethan scoffed. "You can certainly try." Serafina slowly closed her eyes, a slight curve to her lips. "Try, I will." Ethan's voice continued to crackle from the phone, mocking her with something she could no longer hear. Her heart stopped. The artificial heart emitted one last, long beep and then fell silent. The bodyguard's eyes widened in shock. They rushed forward to check on her, only to find she was no longer breathing. The sun still shone warmly on her peaceful face, as if she were merely asleep. This time, no one would ever be able to wake her up. Chapter 9. Serafina? "Serafina, answer me, where are you?" "I'm telling you, don't you dare die," Ethan roared into the phone, his heart gripped by an inexplicable panic. Faster, faster, he slammed his foot on the accelerator, racing toward the cemetery, blowing through red light after red light. In the passenger seat, Phoebe clung to the handle, screaming in terror. "Ethan, can you please slow down? I'm really scared." But Ethan paid her no mind. He heard nothing, his mind consumed by a single thought. He absolutely could not let Serafina die. His thoughts were a chaotic mess. Serafina hadn't been subjected to any torture today. She should have been fine, but her voice on the phone, it hadn't sounded like an act. Ethan couldn't understand it. He just kept accelerating, wishing he could teleport to her side that very instant. Watching his intense profile, Phoebe secretly bit her lip, a bitter taste in her mouth. They had been just outside her parents' house, moments away from meeting them and setting a wedding date. And then, Serafina again, what was the point of someone like her even being alive? She should just die and get it over with. After a frantic drive, Ethan arrived at the hospital in record time. But the bodyguard's face was ashen as he stared at the figure under the white sheet, utterly panicked. Seeing Ethan approach, he lowered his head and stammered, "Mr. Blackwood, Miss Caldwell." "She's gone." She stopped breathing in the coffin at the cemetery. "I brought her here as fast as I could, but the doctors said it was too late." His voice trailed off, terrified of Ethan's wrath. Boom, it was as if Ethan had been struck by lightning. A roaring filled his ears, blocking out all sound, his mind a complete blank. How could this be? Serafina was fine this morning, how could she die? It's fake. Fake, it has to be fake. His eyes were bloodshot. He grabbed the bodyguard's collar, slamming him against the wall. You helped her fake her death, didn't you? To get her away from me so she wouldn't have to suffer anymore. How much did she pay you? I'll give you 10 times that amount. The bodyguard shook his head desperately. Mr. Blackwood, I didn't, but Ethan didn't believe him. His grip tightened, veins popping on his hands as if he wanted to strangle the man on the spot. You didn't. If it wasn't money, then what did she use to persuade you? Her broken body. Seducing men is the only thing she's good for. Mr. Blackwood, I wouldn't dare. Even if you gave me 100 times the courage a dozen doctors you arranged all said she's gone. She's lying right there. If you don't believe me, see for yourself, the bodyguard pleaded, pointing toward the gurney covered by a white sheet. After a long silence, Ethan's expression grew dark and unreadable. He slowly released his grip on the bodyguard and walked to the gurney, pulling back the sheet. Serafina lay there, still and silent. Her face was a deathly gray blue, utterly devoid of color. Her lips were pale, and her body showed no rise and fall of breath. He couldn't hear her breathing, couldn't hear her heartbeat, couldn't feel her warmth. She was really dead. It wasn't an act. Ethan stared at her blankly, a storm of emotions raging in his eyes. There was a sliver of satisfaction and release, but it was overwhelmingly drowned by pain and turmoil. How could you be dead? He whispered, lost. Chapter 10, he had sworn to keep her by his side, to torment her for a lifetime, but his lifetime wasn't over. How could she leave first? Ethan's eyes were red, his breathing heavy. The hand reaching for Serafina's fingertips trembled uncontrollably. A dull, delayed ache began to throb in his heart, and his nose started to sting. After a long silence, Phoebe was the first to break it. She wrapped her arms around him, her voice soft and comforting. Ethan, Serafina was your enemy. You should be happy she's dead. You don't have to watch her suffer anymore. All your hatred is resolved. Let's put this all behind us and live our lives together, okay? Seeing Ethan remain silent, she pressed her cheek against his broad, solid back and secretly curved her lips into a smile. Serafina is already dead. Let's just let her rest in peace. All the old grudges are settled. Her body has no value anymore. As she spoke, her mind was racing, urging Ethan to cremate and bury Serafina as quickly as possible. Only then could she feel at ease. Only when Serafina was ashes could the secret of her faked heart donation be buried forever. Never to be discovered, however, Ethan pushed Phoebe away with a grim expression and summoned all the doctors to question them about Serafina's condition. How exactly did Serafina die? She was perfectly fine this morning at worst. She had some external injuries. How could she possibly die? Did you do something to her? He refused to believe Serafina would just suddenly die. He had to know the truth. The doctors exchanged confused glances. One of them frowned and began, Mr. Blackwood, were you not aware of Miss Caldwell's condition? She gave you her. Before he could finish, Phoebe suddenly clutched her chest and collapsed. Ethan, my heart. It hurts so much. There are too many people, it's so noisy. Can you stay with me? She reached a weak hand toward Ethan, her voice faint. Ethan's brow furrowed, and he rushed to support her. Are you okay? Doctors, what are you waiting for? Check on Phoebe at his command. The doctors' frowns deepened. They looked Phoebe over repeatedly, but could see no signs of a heart condition. Nevertheless, they adhered to their professional code and began to examine her. But the more they examined her, the darker their expressions became. Well, is something wrong with her? Ethan asked anxiously. A senior doctor snorted. Before Phoebe could speak, he announced loudly, there's nothing wrong with her. She's faking it. Her heart is perfectly fine, strong as an ox. What nonsense, the one with the real heart problem is already dead. His words stunned Ethan into silence. His sharp eyes narrowed, and the hand supporting Phoebe slowly dropped. Panic seized her. She quickly came to, burying her face in his chest pitifully. Ethan, I feel so awful. I don't want to stay in this hospital. I want to see Dr. Chen. He understands my condition best. Even if my health isn't that bad, this doctor shouldn't slander me like that. My heart really does hurt. I'm not faking. Could he be an old friend of Serafina's? After all, Serafina's father was a doctor. She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. Ethan immediately understood. In the past, he might have sided with her, believed her. But Serafina was dead. If she wasn't seriously ill, how could she have died? Bodyguards had been watching her around the clock. She had no opportunity to take her own life. And that coffin wasn't sealed. It was impossible to suffocate in it. Chapter 11. The warmth in Ethan's eyes cooled degree by degree. "There are plenty of doctors here," he said coldly. "It's impossible for every one of them to have known Serafina's father. Let them all examine you, one by one. And if that's not enough, this is a hospital full of cardiac specialists. I'm very interested to see if your heart truly has a problem or not." He pulled his hand away and left the room, a hint of fury in his stride. Ethan, listen to me. Let me explain." Ethan, Phoebe scrambled off the bed, desperately calling his name, trying to stop him. But Ethan didn't look back, not even for a second. He gathered numerous doctors, even a medical examiner, to perform a thorough autopsy on Serafina. To prevent anyone from being bribed or covering for someone, he brought in doctors from both home and abroad, ensuring no one could contact them beforehand. Doctor after doctor examined Serafina, and they all reached the same conclusion. "Mr. Blackwood, Miss Caldwell underwent a heart transplant 3 years ago, giving her heart to a recipient. She herself has been living with an artificial heart. The cause of death is standard degradation and failure of the device. Her body has endured immense stress over the past few years and was too weak to withstand another replacement surgery. Death was inevitable." The conclusion hit Ethan like a bomb, shattering his ability to think. How could that be? How could she have donated a heart? He mumbled in disbelief as an impossible thought began to surface in his mind. The heart in his chest, Serafina's heart, began to beat frantically, as if confirming his suspicion. An intense pain spread from his heart, instantly consuming his entire body. "Serafina, how could the person who gave me a heart be you?" Ethan clutched his chest, his eyes turning red. Silent tears rolled down his cheeks, hitting the floor and exposing his vulnerability. He had never, ever considered the possibility that Serafina had been his donor. She had never mentioned it. In fact, back when he had the car accident and was near death, she had been traveling abroad. At the time, he had been furious that she didn't love him enough, that she wouldn't even stay by his side, preventing him from advancing his revenge plot. Only today did he learn the truth. She wasn't traveling abroad at all. She was lying in a hospital room not far from his, fighting for her own life. Gazing at the lifeless woman on the gurney, Ethan felt as if his heart was splitting apart. Breathing became an immense effort. He gripped Serafina's cold hand, pressing it against his own chest. His heart was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, love and hate entwined. He had hated her, but now he hated himself even more. What had he done all this time? He had tormented her, destroyed her, misunderstood her day after day, all while denying her any chance of escape through death. And all along, she was the one who had saved him. Ethan felt he was on the verge of madness. He pressed his face against her hand, whispering apologies over and over. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I'm sorry I got the wrong person." The grudge for his parents' deaths had, in truth, been settled the moment Serafina's parents died. The real reason he had kept her imprisoned and tormented her was simply his own unwillingness to let go. He felt that after all the years of his own suffering and despair, she deserved to feel the same pain. But now, Ethan was consumed by regret. If he had realized sooner that Serafina was the one who had saved him, would things have ever gotten to this point? He hated her, but he had never wanted her to die. And now, Serafina was gone forever. The debt she owed him had long been paid. Now, he was the one in her debt, a debt he could never repay. "Arg!" Ethan let out a guttural scream, his eyes filled with utter despair. Chapter 12. Just then, the results of Phoebe's examination came back. As expected, she had never had a heart transplant. Her heart was perfectly healthy. She was not using an artificial one. A monstrous fury surged in Ethan's dark eyes. He clenched his fists and strode menacingly toward Phoebe. Her lies exposed, she was terrified. Still in her hospital gown, she bolted for the door. "Phoebe," Ethan snarled. At his command, bodyguards rushed forward and pinned her to the ground. Phoebe's face was pressed against the floor. She was a pathetic sight, yet she continued to argue. "Ethan, I didn't mean to lie to you. I can explain. You said you liked me best. It was just a little lie. You can understand that, can't you? I only did it because I like you. Besides, you were the one who thought I saved you in the first place. I just went along with it. Can't you forgive me?" She managed a weak, gentle smile, stretching her fingers to try and touch the cuff of Ethan's pants. The next second, a scream that could have shattered the ceiling ripped from her throat. Ah, Ethan expressionlessly stomped on her fingers, grinding his heel into them. You want my forgiveness. In your dreams, Phoebe, who the hell do you think you are? If you hadn't stolen the credit for saving my life, I never would have given you the time of day. Crack. The distinct sound of bones breaking filled the air. Phoebe's eyes filled with tears of pain as she gasped for breath. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Please let me go. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken Serafina's credit. For the sake of how I helped you torture Serafina, just spare me this once, please. Serafina was your enemy. She deserved to die. Now that she's dead. Can't we just let it go? She endured the pain, pleading desperately. But her pleas were met with Ethan's cold indifference. No, he gestured for the bodyguards to take her away, his voice glacial. I owe her a heart. That debt and my vengeance are two separate things. If it weren't for you, she never would have ended up like this. All I had to do was nurse her back to health, find her a suitable heart, or arrange for regular replacements of her artificial one, and the debt would have been settled. I could have continued to make her suffer. You ruined everything. I will not let you go. Phoebe was dragged away unceremoniously and taken to an operating room. Watching the doors close, her heart hammered in her chest with sheer panic. Ethan, what are you doing? You can't do this. She struggled to get off the operating table, scrambling toward the door. But it was locked. No matter how hard she pounded, it wouldn't open. Wah! Phoebe collapsed in tears, staring at the man standing in the shadows, trembling in fear. She had a sickening idea of what he planned to do. He was going to take her heart. The doctor, having been paid, emotionlessly approached her with a syringe of anesthetic. Terrified, Phoebe crawled on her hands and knees to Ethan, banging her head on the floor. Ethan, I truly know I was wrong. It was just a lie. Please, don't take my heart. I'll die. Punish me however you want. Just don't kill me. I'm begging you. Thud, thud, thud. She kowtowed desperately, not daring to stop even as her forehead became a bloody mess. Finally, Ethan waved his hand, signaling the doctor to stop. His eyes were dark as he gripped her chin, his voice a low whisper. I was never going to take your heart. Chapter 13, you claim to have had artificial heart surgery, that your heart was weak. I'm merely letting you experience what a weak heart truly feels like. He will cut open your chest, let you feel what it's like to have your heart taken out, and then he will put it back. From now on, you will take anti-tumor medication every day. The drug causes irreversible cardiac damage. This is what you deserve. With that, Ethan released her in disgust, casting one last contemptuous glance at her before leaving without looking back. Outside the operating room, he closed his eyes and leaned weakly against the wall, taking several deep breaths. Phoebe was suffering inside, but he felt no satisfaction. Learning she wasn't the one who had saved him had brought him a strange sense of relief. He saw several missed calls on his phone from Phoebe's parents and answered impatiently. A fawning, concerned voice came through. Ethan, dear, weren't you and Phoebe supposed to come over for dinner to discuss the wedding? It's been 2 days and you haven't shown up. Did something happen? Nothing happened. We're not getting married. We've broken up. Don't contact me again, Ethan replied coldly. There was a moment of stunned silence from Phoebe's parents, followed by a dry laugh. Ethan, you're joking, right? You two were so in love. You said she was the one. How could you suddenly break up? Did you have a fight? It's normal for couples to argue, but you shouldn't talk about breaking up over small disagreements. It hurts the relationship. Tell you what, we'll pretend we didn't hear this today. You go make up with Phoebe, and you can both come visit us in a few days. They hurried to hang up, but Ethan cut them off. We didn't have a fight, and we're not getting back together. I never loved her. If she hadn't stolen the credit for saving my life, she never would have had a chance with me. He ended the call, a lost look on his face. Perhaps Serafina was right. He didn't know how to love. He didn't love Phoebe. He was only good to her because he thought she had saved him. Without that debt of gratitude, he felt not an ounce of pity for her. Seeing her in pain, seeing her cry, moved nothing in him. In the past, he had slept with so many of the women around Serafina, pursuing and then discarding each one without a shred of remorse. Perhaps he truly couldn't love anyone. But then why did Serafina's death hurt so much? She was his enemy, he should have been happy. But all those times he had watched her try to kill herself, his own heart had ached. He didn't want her to die. So he had lied to himself, and to her, over and over, saying he wanted to keep her by his side to torture her forever. But was that really the truth? Ethan didn't know. He touched the steady beat of his own heart, telling himself again and again that he didn't love Serafina, that he hated her. And yet, his feet carried him to the morgue. Serafina had no parents left, and thanks to him, her friends and relatives had all abandoned her. Her body had been in the morgue for days, and no one had come to claim it. With a grim face, Ethan contacted the hospital to take her away. As he carried Serafina's body home, he muttered to himself, "I just feel sorry for her. After all, I owe her a heart. Claiming her body is just my way of repaying the debt." Despite his words, Ethan cleared out the large walk-in freezer, bought a cryogenic coffin, and carefully placed Serafina inside. He sat beside the coffin, silently gazing at her face, a dull, persistent pain radiating from the depths of his heart. Chapter 14, an eternity seemed to pass. Ethan sat there until his entire body was numb with cold before he sluggishly rose and left the freezer. In the final moment before closing the door, he looked at Serafina in her icy casket with feigned indifference. "You can rest here. I won't be coming to see you again." Only the whistling wind answered him. After a moment of silence, a dark look crossed Ethan's face. What was he even expecting? For her to wake up and answer him? Impossible. She was dead. There would be no miracles. Ethan pressed his lips into a thin line and left, a nameless anger simmering within him. With 2 people gone from the villa, everything felt different, colder. A maid was packing Phoebe's belongings, calling a car to have them sent back to her home. As she passed Ethan, she noticed a thin layer of dust in Serafina's room. Remembering the news of Serafina's death, she asked tentatively, "Mr. Blackwood, should we throw out Serafina's things? Since she's dead and she was your enemy, shouldn't we just burn everything to get rid of the bad luck?" Ethan's eyes darkened for a second. "Yes," he said stiffly. "Do as you say, pack up all her things and have them burned." "Right away, sir." The maid nodded and had just started gathering a few trinkets when he suddenly roared, "Stop, you go pack Phoebe's things. I'll deal with Serafina's myself. She owes me. Even in death, she won't escape her torment since she's not here. Her belongings will suffer in her place." With that, he stormed into Serafina's room, his face a thunderous mask. Bam, the door slammed shut. The maid jumped, startled, and couldn't help but mutter to herself, "Does he hate her that much? He won't even spare her possessions?" She shivered, making a mental note to be even more careful in the future and never to cross Ethan Blackwood. The maid went back to packing Phoebe's things, completely unaware of what was happening inside the room. The man who had just sworn to destroy Serafina's belongings was now sitting on her bed, holding one of her dresses and staring into space. This blue dress. She had worn it on their first date. It still carried her faint scent, just like that day. Ethan buried his face in the fabric, inhaling deeply, his mind drifting back in time. It was supposed to be just another step in his revenge plan, but that day, he couldn't stop himself from feeling nervous. She had dressed up so carefully, in a beautiful dress and uncomfortable high heels. She was surrounded by a delicate fragrance, impossibly beautiful. Ethan's heart had hammered in his chest. He tried to tell himself he couldn't like her, couldn't look at her too much, but his eyes were uncontrollably drawn to her. Their first time holding hands, their first hug, their first kiss. Everything was so sweet, so perfect it felt unreal. Even the sunset and the night sky that day seemed especially beautiful. The moment he kissed Serafina, he forgot all about his hatred. His heart betrayed him, pounding wildly as he kissed her with a desperate, unrestrained passion, as if he wanted to consume her whole. After that day, Ethan had told himself over and over that he didn't love her, that he only hated her, that every kind act was just a means to a better revenge. Perhaps he had lied to himself so many times that he had started to believe it. But now that Serafina was truly gone, all he felt was an endless sea of sorrow and heartache. Ethan clutched the dress tightly, his eyes growing moist. He whispered her name like a prayer, "Serafina, Serafina." He didn't know how much time had passed. Lying on Serafina's bed, wrapped in her blanket, surrounded by her unique scent, he finally fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 15, at some point, Ethan drifted into a boundless dream. This time, the dream wasn't filled with pain, but with happiness. In the dream, it was 10 years ago. His father hadn't died, and his mother was well. Ethan grew up in a happy, loving home. He met Serafina by chance at school, and they began a wonderfully sweet romance. With no hatred to stand between them, They were like the happiest couple in the world. After only a year, Ethan couldn't wait any longer and brought Serafina home to meet his parents. "Serafina, I love you. I dream of marrying you. Let's get married as soon as we graduate and never be apart, okay?" Serafina smiled and fell into his arms, nodding shyly. "Okay, Ethan, do you think your parents will like me?" she asked, nervously clutching the hem of his shirt. Ethan nodded without hesitation. "They will definitely love the girl I love. I'm more worried about whether your parents will like me." His words made Serafina laugh, and she mimicked him. "They will definitely love the boy I love." They both burst into laughter. After meeting both sets of parents, everyone was thrilled with the match, and a wedding date was set. However, on the wedding day, the happy dream came to an abrupt end. At the grandest of weddings, the bride never appeared. Serafina had vanished. Ethan searched the entire world but couldn't find a trace of her. He was like a madman, wanting to turn the world upside down to find her. Nothing, still nothing. Finally, for some unknown reason, a thought surfaced in his mind: the cemetery. In the empty cemetery, there was only one gravestone, starkly engraved with the words, "Here lies Serafina Caldwell." Behind the headstone was a freshly raised mound of earth. It was clear who lay buried beneath. "Impossible, impossible. Serafina, you haven't married me yet, how could you die? I won't allow it." He fell to his knees before the grave, frantically clawing at the dirt with his bare hands. He dug for what felt like an eternity. His hands were bloody and raw, the pain turning to numbness, before he finally hit a coffin. "Serafina, I'm here to save you." Ethan forced a smile that was uglier than a sob, his eyes filled with a crazed light. He threw open the coffin lid. Serafina's peaceful, sleeping face was revealed. She was silent and still, with no breath and no heartbeat. She would never wake up again. Ethan lifted Serafina's cold body, his voice a broken roar. "Serafina, wake up, look at me one more time, please. I'm begging you. I love you, we still have to get married. We still have a lifetime of happiness ahead of us. How could you be so cruel as to leave me?" He desperately kissed her face, but all he felt was icy coldness. At some point, the person in his arms grew lighter and lighter, until she completely dissipated before his eyes. It was as if she had never existed, vanishing completely from his sight. Staring at his empty hands, Ethan was stunned, unable to process what had happened. Tears finally rolled down his cheeks, landing in his palm, the heat stinging his heart. But Serafina was gone for good. Ethan clutched his chest, his heart turning to ash. "Serafina. Serafina?" He chanted her name over and over, then jolted awake from the dream. His arms were empty, holding only one of Serafina's dresses. Chapter 16, Ethan remained dazed for a long time before letting out a self-deprecating laugh, his eyes red. "Serafina, you really did it. I regret everything. All these years, I was lying to you. The truth is, I fell in love with you a long time ago. For things to have ended up this way, I truly regret it." An immense bitterness filled his heart. He hugged the light, airy dress as if it were Serafina herself, wishing he could meld her into his very bones, never to be separated. Just then, the sharp ring of his phone pulled him from his thoughts. He answered. A staff member from the cemetery management office spoke formally. "Hello, is this Mr. Blackwood? You are listed as the contact person for Miss Serafina Caldwell. We were wondering if the burial plot Miss Caldwell purchased has been used yet. Our staff noticed it's still just an empty grave, and we wanted to inquire about when it might be occupied. Our staff regularly maintains the cemetery, and the open plot is affecting the appearance and disturbing other visitors. We would appreciate it if you could make a decision on how to proceed soon." Hearing this, Ethan's grip on the phone tightened, his voice turning to ice. "That plot will not be used. Not now, not ever. She will stay by my side. She's not going anywhere. In that case, would you like to sell the plot? Or keep it for future use?" The staff member was taken aback, stammering after a long pause. Ethan frowned, silent for a moment before speaking slowly. "Keep it for future use." With that confirmed, the staff member quickly made the arrangements and hung up. After leaving Serafina's room, Ethan went back to the freezer. He no longer suppressed the intense emotions in his heart, gazing lovingly at the person in the cryogenic coffin. "Serafina, don't blame me for being cruel, for not letting you return to your parents' side. I just want you to stay with me a little longer. After I've made Phoebe suffer enough, I'll come and join you." As he spoke, he held Serafina's hand tightly, pressing a gentle kiss to it. He continued, "I don't hate you anymore. I should have stopped hating you long ago. You gave me your heart, and I owe you so much. Don't worry, I will repay you for everything." Just as he finished speaking, there was a knock on the freezer door. "Come in," Ethan said coolly. The door opened, and a bodyguard threw a woman who looked like a limp doll onto the floor, reporting mechanically, "Mr. Blackwood, Phoebe is here. She has taken today's dose of medication." Ethan nodded, rose, and grabbed Phoebe by the hair, dragging her before Serafina's coffin and forcing her to her knees. "Apologize to Serafina, acknowledge your mistakes for every time you bullied her. You will now pay it back." He then tossed Phoebe aside. Phoebe wept pathetically, her heart filled with resentment, but a sharp pain was twisting in her chest. "Ethan, why should I apologize to her? I've suffered enough. I've already paid for my mistakes. Didn't I bully her for you? You were the one who wanted to punish her, to torture her. I was just helping you. You want me to apologize to Serafina, but shouldn't you be the one apologizing?" She glared at him defiantly. Yes, she was at fault, but wasn't Ethan the root of it all? Every time Serafina was tortured, he had allowed it. A flicker of guilt crossed Ethan's eyes before his expression hardened again. "I will give Serafina the apology and atonement she deserves, and so will you, since you're unwilling to apologize. Bodyguard, help her." At his command, the bodyguard grabbed Phoebe and forced her head down, making her kowtow to Serafina again and again. Thud, thud, thud. The humiliating ordeal finally ended after what felt like an eternity. The blood on Phoebe's forehead had frozen, and she was a complete wreck. Chapter 17, but the torture was far from over. Ethan didn't care whether she had actually apologized or not. He had the bodyguard drag her to the lakeside and repeatedly forced her head under the water. Cough, cough. Phoebe felt the air in her lungs dwindling. Her throat burned and her vision blackened. Just as she was about to suffocate, the bodyguard finally let her go. She was drenched, flopping on the bank like a landed fish, fighting for her life. Ethan watched the scene with cold, detached eyes. He asked lightly, "Are you willing to apologize to Serafina now?" Having narrowly escaped death, Phoebe's eyes were wide with panic. She nodded frantically. "Yes, I'll apologize. I'll do anything. Just please, let me go after you're done tormenting me. I'll never do anything again. I'll never even appear before you again." Only then did Ethan nod in satisfaction, signaling for the bodyguard to drag her back. This time, Phoebe trembled uncontrollably, her teeth chattering from the cold, and apologized over and over. "I'm sorry, Serafina, I shouldn't have stolen the credit for your heart donation. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have bullied you again and again, please. Forgive me." She repeated her apologies countless times before Ethan, looking annoyed, had her taken away. When he turned back to Serafina, his expression softened once more. He held a fruit knife, and without a change in expression, began to slice long gashes into his own arm. Blood welled up, staining the cryogenic coffin red, but he smiled faintly as if he couldn't feel the pain. "Serafina, I'm sorry. I took so much of your blood for Phoebe. She has paid for it during her surgery, and now it's my turn. I told you, I will repay everything I owe you. If I pay it all back, will you forgive me for everything I've done? If there's a next life, can we be together again? Can we never be separated?" As he spoke, his voice grew weaker, his eyelids heavier, until he finally succumbed to darkness. Some time later, Ethan opened his eyes again to the smell of antiseptic. His arm was bandaged and throbbed with a dull pain. Oh, so he wasn't dead yet? The thought drifted through his mind. Assistant Lewis was sitting anxiously by his bed. "Mr. Blackwood," he pleaded, "we've known each other since college. Didn't you hate Serafina Caldwell? Why would you try to kill yourself for her? Your parents wanted you to live a good life before they died. How can you die for the daughter of your enemy? What was so good about her? If you want a woman, there are plenty out there. Your enemies are all gone. You can have whatever you want. Serafina's cousins, her best friend, aren't they all waiting for you to choose? What is there to be so upset about?" He truly didn't understand. Ethan stared blankly at the ceiling. "I don't want any other woman," he said flatly, "because I fell in love with Serafina, and I regret it." His words silenced Assistant Lewis. He had suspected this before and had tried to persuade Ethan not to be so cruel to Serafina. After all, her parents were the ones at fault. Moreover, Lewis had seen how Ethan had pursued her. That kind of affection didn't seem faked. He knew Ethan would get burned by it eventually. Lewis had tried to warn him, but at the time, Ethan had insisted he would never love her, that he only hated her. He argued that she had enjoyed the resources and love her parents provided, all funded by the money they earned from their work, the same work that had led to his family's destruction. Why should her parents get away with killing someone, earn money from it to raise their family, while his was destroyed? He wanted to punish her for it. And now, Ethan was saying he loved her. How ironic. Chapter 18, Assistant Lewis sighed deeply and shook his head. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Serafina is dead now, it's too late for everything. But you still have a long life ahead of you. You have to keep going, live on for your parents and for Serafina. He wanted to say more, but Ethan cut him off. Lewis, don't try to persuade me, I've made up my mind. My parents are gone, and Serafina is gone. I have no reason to live in this world anymore. Once I've repaid everything I owe Serafina, I will die. Don't try to stop me. Tell the bodyguards and the staff not to interfere. This is my choice. By the way, the company is yours now. Consider it my thanks for all the years you've fought alongside me. His voice held an unshakable resolve. Lewis knew that once Ethan made a decision, no one could change his mind. Helpless, Lewis stopped trying and instead helped arrange Ethan's affairs before leaving the hospital. Ethan pulled out his IV drip and checked himself out early. Back at the villa, the maids had prepared a basin full of red-hot coals as he had requested. After confirming their searing heat, he dismissed the maids and locked the door. All of you have the day off. Do not come to the villa without my permission. Leave now. The maids outside the door were confused, but obeyed his command, quickly leaving the property. Once everyone was gone, Ethan expressionlessly grabbed a piece of burning coal and pressed it firmly against his own skin. A sizzling sound filled the room, along with the stench of burning flesh. The intense heat instantly raised blisters on his hands, which burst as he picked up the next piece of coal. Soon, his well-defined hands were a bloody mess, covered in ugly, blackened red wounds. He clenched his jaw, enduring the agony without making a sound. Piece after piece of coal was pressed against his body. Ethan was nearly cooked alive, the pain beyond description. Finally, when all the coals had cooled, the torment ended. Ethan collapsed weakly to the floor, barely a patch of unburned skin left on his body. The room was a chaotic scene of blood and gore. Ha! He suddenly let out a bitter laugh. Serafina, so this is how much it hurt you back then. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. His apologies had become a reflex. Cold tears streamed down his face, dripping onto his wounds and sending ripples of fresh pain through him. Hiss! Ethan sucked in a sharp breath, but a strange sense of relief washed over him. This was a small way to repay her, wasn't it? After a long while, he staggered to his feet and made his way to the freezer. Opening the cryogenic coffin, he instinctively reached out to touch her face. But his hand, covered in grime and blood, soiled her skin. I'm sorry, Serafina. I'll clean it right now. Please don't be angry with me, okay? Panicked, Ethan apologized profusely. He endured the pain and used a clean tissue to wipe her face. Only when she was clean again did a slow smile spread across his face. See, Serafina, the injuries you suffered, the pain you endured, I have repaid it all. We're even now. Are you happy? He received no reply, but he wasn't sad. As if to prove his words, he began to unbutton his tattered shirt. His perfect, muscular physique was revealed, strong and well-defined. But the jarring wounds covering his skin completely ruined the sight. Chapter 19, countless wounds crisscrossed his body, the flesh torn and blackened, with blood still seeping out. It was a gruesome sight. Ethan didn't care. He took her hand and guided it to touch the wounds on his body. His voice was impossibly gentle. Serafina, it doesn't hurt at all. But you must have been in so much pain back then, right? I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I've made so many mistakes in my life. That's why heaven is punishing me by taking you away from me forever. I'm sorry. I've said enough about my other mistakes. Lastly, I just want to tell you I have always loved you. I was just too stupid to realize it myself. Ethan's eyes were downcast, filled with sorrow and loneliness. After a long silence, he held Serafina's hand, and together they pressed the fruit knife to his chest. As the blade pierced his skin, a relieved smile bloomed on his face. He spoke softly. Let's wipe the slate clean. This heart was your gift to me. Now, I want to give it back to you. I love you if there really is a next life. I swear I will never hurt you again. I will always be good to you. I will love you forever. I don't want anything else. I just want us to have a next life with no debts and no grudges. Let us start over just once more, okay?" As he spoke, their joined hands pushed harder. The blade sank deeper into his chest and twisted violently. Ethan could clearly feel the excruciating pain in his heart, his vision turning black. In his final moment, he forcibly tore out his own heart. The vigorously beating heart in their hands gradually slowed to a stop. Ethan Blackwood was dead. His consciousness drifted away from his body but didn't disappear. After a flash of white light, Ethan felt a dizzying, chaotic sensation. A ringing in his ears lasted for an unknown amount of time before finally ceasing. When he opened his eyes again, he looked at his slightly smaller hands, dazed for a long moment. His mother pushed open his bedroom door and urged gently, "Ethan, you're going to be late for school. Hurry up." Hearing his mother's long-lost voice, Ethan froze before his eyes reddened with tears. He suppressed his grief, composed himself, and nodded. "I'll get ready. I'm heading to school now." His mother found it strange but didn't press the issue, closing the door behind her. Looking at the calendar, Ethan realized he had returned to 10 years in the past. In his previous life, at this point, none of the tragedies had happened yet. His father hadn't even realized he was sick. By the time it was discovered, his father's condition was already critical. But the surgery itself hadn't been particularly difficult. Logically, whether it was Dr. Caldwell or another surgeon in the same department, it should have been successful. If so, his father would have been fine. However, Dr. Caldwell had been utterly exhausted at the time, but had insisted on performing the surgery, which led to the subsequent accident. This time, Ethan would not let them repeat the same mistakes. He quickly changed into his school uniform and left for school as usual. After a full day of classes, he went to his father's company as he always did, learning to handle business affairs. After a meeting, his father saw his son sitting properly, with a stack of perfectly handled documents beside him. He couldn't help but praise him. "Ethan, you're getting more and more capable. You'll soon be better than me. This project was handled very well. Is there anything you want?" Ethan shook his head calmly. "I don't want anything. But Dad, you should rest more. I was passing an employee's desk just now and heard him say he's been feeling unwell lately, getting sick often, and needs to see a doctor. Dad, you haven't looked well recently either. Why don't we move up the company's annual physical exam and maybe change it to twice a year? Good health is essential for good work." His father didn't think much of it and nodded in agreement. "You're right, that's a good idea. I'll arrange it. Starting tomorrow, the entire company will go for physicals in batches. I'll go too." Chapter 20, Ethan nodded in satisfaction. He also went online and found several suitable psychologists, planning to arrange some counseling for his mother. Not only that, he also signed her up for dance classes, intending to help her rediscover her passion. Her life shouldn't revolve solely around his father. When his mother heard the news, she was both amused and annoyed. "Ethan, you're so young, yet you're arranging so much for us. You've really grown up. Are you going to be like this with your girlfriend in the future? Not every girl likes a boyfriend who manages everything. You need to learn some self-control." Ethan's face was stern. "Mom, the girl I like will like me for who I am." Hearing this, his mother's interest was instantly piqued. "Does that mean you have someone you like? Who is she? A classmate? A debutante from one of the prominent families?" "Neither. We haven't met yet." A hint of bitterness crept into Ethan's voice. He said no more and went back to his room. It was true. They hadn't met in this life. With his parents' situation still uncertain, he didn't dare to approach her rashly. He was terrified of repeating the mistakes of his past life. Ethan suppressed the surging longing in his heart and quietly waited for his father's test results. A few days later, the detailed results came back. There was indeed a tumor, but it was benign for now. As long as it was removed promptly, there was no danger. His father scheduled the surgery immediately. Ethan followed him closely to the hospital. When he saw the familiar doctor, he instinctively clenched his fists. The surgeon in charge was, once again, Arthur Caldwell. He was, after all, the most authoritative doctor in the city in this field. It was natural for his father to seek him out. Ethan suppressed his anger and said to his father, "Can we switch doctors? I don't feel comfortable with him. To be safe, let's have a few more surgeons in the operating room. Our family can afford it." "All right, as you wish." His father found it odd but didn't question it, simply agreeing. It was a simple surgery. It didn't matter which doctor performed it. He lay down on the operating table calmly, smiled warmly, and hugged his wife and son. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. The surgery will be over soon." His mother and Ethan nodded, tears in their eyes, before leaving the operating room. Arthur Caldwell, not being chosen, wasn't bothered and simply rushed off to his next surgery. Ethan stared at his retreating figure for a long, long time. This time, they would absolutely not walk the same tragic path as before. A few hours later, the surgery was a success. His father was pale, but in good condition. The immense weight on Ethan's heart finally lifted. He felt a profound sense of relief. Now, he could finally go and find Serafina in this life. They would meet early and never be separated after his father was discharged. Ethan requested to transfer schools. His parents were stunned. "Aren't you doing well at this school? All your friends are there. Why the sudden desire to transfer?" "Because I want to find the girl I like. I want to pursue her," Ethan said, a smile unconsciously touching his lips. "Mom, Dad, don't worry. At my academic level, college entrance exams are not a problem. You don't need to worry about my grades." Even with their open-mindedness, his parents still advised him gently, "We can agree to the transfer, but let's be clear. You're still young, and it's not the right time for a serious relationship. Once you're in college, you can pursue her, and I won't stop you. But if you do anything to disrespect her or her parents now, I will not let you off the hook." Chapter 21. Ethan smiled faintly and nodded. "Don't worry, Mom, Dad, I know. I just want to be by her side early on to keep others from getting close to her. Once she comes of age, I'll confess my feelings." Seeing his determination, his parents no longer stood in his way. The night before transferring to Serafina's school, Ethan couldn't sleep. A smile played on his lips as he pressed a hand to his heart, whispering, "Serafina, we won't miss each other this lifetime. There is no hatred or obstacle between us anymore. We will be happy this time. I will only love you, and there will never be anyone else." He fell asleep with a blissful smile. The next day, Ethan walked to the door of Serafina's classroom, his heart pounding with excitement and longing, and stepped inside. The next moment, the blood in his veins ran cold. In the seat next to Serafina sat a handsome, roguish boy. His tall frame was somewhat cramped in the chair as he flashed a placating smile at Serafina, begging for forgiveness. "Serafina, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drink from your cup. Just forgive me this once. Don't be mad. We're so close. Haven't we shared drinks countless times since we were kids? Besides, we're in MMPH. Cameron Albright." Before Cameron could get the last word out, a flustered Serafina clamped her hand over his mouth, muffling the rest. She held her hand firmly over his mouth, her cheeks flushed. She didn't notice that Cameron's ears had turned bright red too. The other students were clearly used to their playful bickering, letting out a few knowing chuckles without saying much. Only when Cameron gently nudged her a few times did she slowly release her hand, though she still shot him a glare. Just then, the homeroom teacher walked in from behind Ethan, leading him to the front of the class. "This is our new transfer student from the international school next door, Ethan Blackwood. Everyone, please get along with him and learn from him. Ethan, why don't you introduce yourself to the class?" "Ethan, Ethan." It took several prompts from the teacher for Ethan to snap out of his daze. He introduced himself mechanically, not even remembering what he said. His mind was consumed by a single thought. Serafina was with someone else. How could this be? He would never allow it. Ethan secretly clenched his fists, his gaze locked on Serafina. Serafina's heart also jolted. Looking at that face, she almost burst into tears. With just one glance, she understood instantly. Ethan had been reborn too. No wonder her father had mentioned a few days ago that the Blackwood family seemed to have changed a lot. Yes, Serafina and her parents had all been reborn, even earlier than Ethan. The moment Serafina was born in this life, their entire family had returned. This time, they were determined to rewrite their destiny together. So, her father dedicated himself to his medical research. They moved to a new city, and he joined a new hospital, becoming a top expert even sooner. But this time, he would never push himself beyond his limits. He rested regularly and strived for perfection in his work. He had originally planned to operate on Ethan's father himself to personally resolve the grudges of their past life. But Ethan didn't give him the chance. Her father didn't mind. As long as the Blackwoods' fate was no longer tied to theirs, their family could live a happy life. Chapter 22. After the Caldwells moved, Serafina and Cameron became neighbors. They grew up together, and seeing how close they were, their parents arranged an engagement for them. It wasn't mandatory, but neither Serafina nor Cameron had any intention of refusing. If it weren't for Cameron, Serafina might still be trapped in the pain of her past life. Cameron had been mischievous since he was a child. Whenever Serafina was sad, he would pull small pranks, often angering her enough to chase him around. He was tough and would let her catch him, allowing her to vent her frustrations. Gradually, Serafina healed. She understood that Cameron's antics were just his clumsy way of trying to cheer her up. Now, just as Serafina had finally let go of all the love and hate from her past life, she came face to face with a familiar person. She had thought they would never cross paths again. But even now, meeting again, there was no possibility between them. As she was thinking this, she felt a warmth in her hand. Looking down, she saw that Cameron had secretly taken her hand and, unnoticed by anyone, intertwined their fingers. She shot him a glare, signaling him to let go. Cameron understood perfectly, but pretended not to, squeezing her hand tighter with a goofy smile. While Serafina was preoccupied with her hand wrestling match with Cameron, Ethan had somehow appeared beside her desk. Tap, tap. His face was grim as his well-defined fingers rapped on the table. "Excuse me, can I sit in the seat next to you?" He clearly wanted Cameron's seat, but he only addressed Serafina. Feeling all eyes on her, Serafina's scalp tingled with embarrassment. "No, you can't. No, this is my seat. There are other empty seats in the classroom. Pick any of them, just not this one." Serafina and Cameron spoke almost in unison. Ethan gave her a deep look. He didn't press the issue, but his expression visibly darkened. The school day felt like sitting on pins and needles for Serafina. As soon as the bell rang, she was about to grab Cameron and run, but Ethan grabbed her other arm, stopping her. "Serafina, I think we need to talk." The usual smile vanished from Cameron's face, replaced by a coldness Ethan had never seen before. "No, Serafina doesn't want to talk to you. There's nothing for you two to talk about." Accepting the challenge, Ethan's sharp eyes narrowed. "It's normal that you don't know about my past with Serafina. Besides, you're not qualified to make decisions for her." Furious, Cameron was about to retort when Serafina stepped in front of him, looking at Ethan coolly. "If you want to talk about our past lives, then Cameron is right. There's nothing to talk about. Cameron knows everything about what my family went through. Now that your family is safe and sound, my family no longer owes you anything. Can't we just leave it at that and be strangers?" "Strangers?" Ethan's eyes reddened, and he let out a bitter laugh. "We were so in love in our past life. How do you expect me to treat you like a stranger?" His words struck Serafina as ridiculous. "In love? Ethan, are you delusional? Wasn't everything you did for me just part of your revenge? After how you tortured me, how could you possibly call that love?" "No, it wasn't like that," he explained hastily. "I just didn't know you were the one who gave me your heart after you died. I found out everything and realized I loved you. The good things I did weren't for revenge. They were from the heart. I just realized it too late, and that's why you got hurt so much. I punished myself for it. If you don't believe me, I can go through it all again to prove it to you." He grabbed her hand, trying to press it against his heart to prove his sincerity. Chapter 23. Serafina coldly pulled her hand away, her face etched with weariness. "There's no need. I don't need your sincerity. I don't care about our past life anymore, and I don't want to rehash old grievances. I stopped loving you a long time ago. I've started a new life, and you should learn to let go and start over too." With that, she intertwined her fingers with Cameron's and tried to leave again. Seeing Ethan about to follow, Cameron blocked him with his arm, warning him impatiently. "Serafina already told you she doesn't want you. Why are you still chasing her? The past is the past. If you dare to pursue Serafina again, I won't let you get away with it. And it's not just me. Serafina's parents will never forgive you either. In our past life, Dr. Caldwell made a mistake, but he didn't deserve to die. You destroyed him and Mrs. Caldwell, and then you bullied Serafina like that. And now you want to win her back. Dream on, we're already engaged. The only person Serafina will ever marry is me." With a final shove, he pushed Ethan away and left with Serafina. Watching their retreating backs, Ethan felt as if his heart was being torn apart. So, this is what it feels like to see the one you love with someone else. It was an unbearable pain. Ethan leaned weakly against the wall, consumed by sorrow. He had never imagined that Serafina would fall in love with someone else, that she would be with another man. Everything had started over, so why couldn't he be given another chance? He would truly treat her well this time, but no matter how many promises he made, Serafina no longer cared. Loving him so recklessly once was enough. She didn't want to make the same mistake again. In this life, her family was finally reunited. She didn't want any more accidents, didn't want to be punished and tortured by Ethan again. As Serafina and Cameron got out of the car, just before entering her house, Cameron grabbed her hand. He looked at her like a sad puppy. "Serafina, you won't leave me for Ethan in this life, right? I can't live without you." His antics made Serafina laugh. She patted his head and smiled. Don't worry. I'm not going back. But if you want to be with me, you'll have to work harder in your studies. Otherwise, if we're not in the same university, won't you worry about me running off with someone else?" Cameron immediately puffed out his chest. "I'll study hard, I promise." They laughed and joked as they went home. When Serafina's parents heard from her what Ethan had said, they slammed their fists on the table in fury, looking ready to go confront him that very second. Serafina quickly stopped them, coaxing them gently. "Dad, Mom, it's all in the past. Don't be angry." Her parents gradually calmed down, though they were still simmering. "Serafina, you can be with anyone you want in the future, but you are forbidden from going back to Ethan Blackwood. We will never approve of him." Serafina smiled and nodded. "I know, you know how I've felt all these years. Cameron is enough for me. I've long since moved on from Ethan." Hearing this, her parents finally relaxed, but after dinner, a plan began to form in their minds. Being just a doctor left them too vulnerable in terms of power and influence. Even with Arthur Caldwell's skills, which allowed him to network with the elite, it would be difficult to ask them to go against the Blackwood family. Relying on others was not a long-term solution. Eleanor Caldwell decided to return to her old profession, venture capital and stock trading. Even if they couldn't match a giant like the Blackwood family, they could at least have the means to protect themselves. Chapter 24, that weekend, Serafina and Cameron went to the amusement park as planned, only to run straight into Ethan. He had brought a car full of her favorite pink tulips and the heirloom necklace. "Serafina, I've booked the entire amusement park. Today it's just for the two of us, and these are all for you." He looked at her earnestly, his eyes gentle, his expression calm, as if their unpleasant encounter a few days ago had never happened. Serafina frowned, not sparing the gifts a single glance. She took Cameron's hand and turned to leave. "An empty amusement park has no soul. I don't like it, and I don't need pink tulips or the necklace. Cameron, remember not to give me these things in the future, okay?" Cameron nodded and smiled. "I'll remember. I've always known what you like. What I remember most clearly is that you love the origami roses I made for you. I folded 9,999 of them." Serafina was lost in the memory, a blissful smile on her face, as she and Cameron bantered back and forth. Watching them walk away, Ethan stood frozen for a long time. Why doesn't she like them anymore? I did everything according to her preferences from our last life. He didn't understand, his eyes filled with confusion and sorrow. But he had forgotten one crucial thing: people change. Things you once loved, you might suddenly dislike one day. The person you once loved, you might suddenly stop loving one day. Trying to relive the past based on old memories was useless. Their life paths had already diverged. Ethan clutched the necklace tightly, the sharp edges of the diamond digging into his palm. He looked through the necklace, remembering how Serafina had looked wearing it in their past life. She had been overjoyed to receive it, unable to hide her smile. Back then, her eyes had been filled with only him, but now Serafina had changed. Her eyes were only for Cameron, and Ethan had become an outsider. Ethan stood there, lost in thought, for a long time before slowly walking away. For the next 10 days, he was met with rejection after rejection. It seemed that no matter what he did, Serafina would never like him again. Ethan returned home, dejected, only to find his parents waiting for him. "Ethan, you haven't been yourself lately. We need to have a serious talk," his mother said sternly. Ethan nodded absently. His parents exchanged a look and sighed. "Ethan," his father said kindly, "even if you like a girl very much, you can't just let everything else go look at you. You're a wreck. You can't force matters of the heart. She's already rejected you. Why are you so persistent? You were the one who encouraged your mother to pursue her goals and found her a psychologist. Now it seems you're the one who needs to see one." Ethan just kept nodding, clearly not taking any of it in. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Dad, Mom, if someone did something wrong in the past that they can't undo, and they're trying their best to make up for it now but still aren't forgiven, why is that?" His eyes were downcast, his shoulders slumped. He had never seemed so vulnerable. His parents hugged him, offering gentle advice. "Not all mistakes can be forgiven, even with amends. If the same thing happened to you, could you forgive without any reservations? Besides, the way you're trying to make amends might not be what the other person needs. Some things, once lost, can never be regained. So, of course, she won't forgive you." Ethan fell silent. His mind was a jumble, his expression dark and unreadable. Chapter 25, when he didn't answer, they continued, "We don't know what happened to you in the past, but let the past be the past. There's no point in dwelling on it. Maybe if you start over, try a different approach with her, things will be different. If it still doesn't work, then let her go. You two are not meant to be." Even though Ethan hadn't told them everything, his parents had guessed that the issue was between him and the girl he liked. They didn't understand how things could have gotten so complicated for teenagers. But as parents, all they could do was try to guide him. If that failed, they were prepared to take more drastic measures. Ethan lowered his head, deep in thought. Give up? He didn't think he could. The love and hate of his past life were too deeply ingrained, seared into his very soul. He couldn't let go, and he couldn't understand how Serafina could. Perhaps he had truly hurt her too deeply. Ethan was filled with self-blame, but he was helpless. After a long while, he said softly to his parents, "I'll try a different way, but I will never give up on her." With that, he went to his room, ignoring their reactions. His parents felt a deep sense of powerlessness. The next day at school, Ethan acted like a normal classmate, no longer following Serafina with his eyes at all times. However, he would always prepare a detailed set of notes and leave them on her desk when no one was looking. When he saw she hadn't eaten breakfast, he would buy an extra portion and have a female classmate give it to her. When she accidentally fell and hurt herself, Ethan instinctively wanted to rush over and help her up, but he hesitated, opting to call the school nurse instead. By the time the nurse arrived, Cameron already had Serafina on his back, carrying her to the classroom to treat her wound. He always seemed to be one step behind. A step too late in realizing his love for her, a step too late in being reborn, a step too late in meeting her again. Life was full of these missteps, and it was these very accidents that had made him lose her completely. A bitter taste filled Ethan's mouth. High school flew by. He tried his best to be a good, normal classmate to Serafina, but he was rejected every time, simply because she didn't need him. At the graduation party, everyone was playing games. Because Serafina was there, Ethan decided to join in. Perhaps it was bad luck, but he lost the very first round. The students looked at the dare card he drew and read it out loud with a whoop. "Hey, genius, your dare is to confess to the person you like." Almost instantly, Ethan's gaze fell on Serafina. His tightly pressed lips moved slightly. "Serafina, I like you." Before he could say the last 3 words, Cameron deliberately shouted, "Serafina, you promised to be my girlfriend yesterday. That still counts, right?" "It counts." For some reason, Serafina had a bad feeling. She hadn't heard Ethan's voice, too worried about what Cameron might do next. Sure enough, the next second, in front of everyone, Cameron cupped the back of her head, hiding most of her face, and gently placed a kiss on her lips. His heart was hammering so fast Serafina could hear it clearly, but he tried to act suave, clumsily biting her lip in the process. Serafina's face darkened. She grabbed his hair, pulled him into a corner, and deepened the kiss. Crack. The wine glass in Ethan's hand shattered. Blood dripped from his palm, the glass shards digging deep into the soft flesh, a sharp, stinging pain. His face was as dark as ink, his voice laced with suppressed rage. "I forfeit. I'll drink." Chapter 26, without another word, Ethan ignored everyone's attempts to stop him and began chugging bottle after bottle of alcohol. The harsh liquor burned his throat. As the alcohol clouded his mind, a crazed smile spread across his lips. Serafina, I won't give up on you, so what if you're with Cameron? If I try hard enough, you'll eventually fall for me. He stumbled to his feet and walked over to Serafina, trying to pull her out of Cameron's arms. The entire room fell silent. Smack, a loud slap echoed as Serafina struck Ethan across the face. You lunatic, I will never like you in this lifetime. Give up. Ethan licked the blood from the corner of his lip and gave her a dangerous smile. Yes, I've been a lunatic for a long time. You know that? He gripped Serafina's wrist, forcing himself on her, trying to kiss her. Cameron, enraged, punched him in the face. Ethan, I've had enough of you. The person Serafina loves now is me. She will never love you. Don't even think about competing with me, he roared, landing punch after punch on Ethan. Ethan deliberately didn't dodge, wanting to see who Serafina would choose. Suddenly, the chandelier above them began to creak and fall. In that split second, Serafina desperately pulled Cameron toward her. He was tall, and realizing the danger, he immediately spun around to shield her with his body. With a crash, countless glass fragments showered down, embedding themselves in Ethan's body. He was covered in blood, a crimson figure. Ethan, are you okay? Ethan, are you hurt? Classmates crowded around him, concerned, but Serafina only had eyes for Cameron. He was the one who had just been beat. Why was Serafina so biased? Did he not have even a tiny place in her heart anymore? An immense bitterness filled Ethan. He stared at Serafina's back, and the anger made him cough up a mouthful of blood before he collapsed. Serafina was busy checking Cameron's injuries. Seeing the glass shards in his back, her heart ached, and she pounded his chest a few times. Cameron, if you ever act so recklessly again, fighting or getting hurt, I will never forgive you. Cameron raised his hands in surrender. I know, I won't do it again. I just wanted to stand up for you. It won't happen again. Seeing his promise, Serafina nodded, and they went to the hospital together. From beginning to end, she hadn't spared Ethan a single glance. The next day, Ethan woke up to find an unfamiliar foreign nurse by his side. He frowned. As he struggled to sit up, his parents walked in. Ethan, you'll be recovering abroad for a while. We've found the best psychologist for you. It's time you got proper help. The Caldwells told us everything, including what you all went through in your past lives. At these words, Ethan froze. His parents sighed deeply. Truthfully, we never wanted you to get revenge for us. Life and death are fated, and Mr. Caldwell didn't do it on purpose. He should have atoned for his actions, but he didn't deserve to die. And you tormented their entire family. That was our failure as parents. We will do a better job raising you from now on. Until you've recovered, you are not to return home. We've arranged for you to attend the best university abroad. With your abilities from both lifetimes, your studies shouldn't be a problem. From now on, our family will live a good life abroad. Do not disturb the Caldwell family anymore. No, I don't want to give up on Serafina. Ethan's eyes were bloodshot as he struggled to get out of bed and escape. The nurse gave him a shot of tranquilizer. His body went limp on the bed, his eyes filled with despair. Even with the memories of 2 lifetimes, he was still no match for his parents. Ethan was trapped abroad for 5 years. He finally managed to build his own career, even surpassing his parents. After a long and arduous struggle, he escaped his parents' control and returned to his home country. He never expected that the next time he saw Serafina would be at her wedding to Cameron. He saw her from across a crowded room, but all he could see was the blissful smile on her face. Just as Ethan was about to say something, Arthur and Alina Caldwell appeared, their faces grim, and escorted him out. Mr. Blackwood, you are not welcome here. Do not appear before our family ever again. Serafina and Cameron are very happy. You and she are not meant to be. Please leave. Ethan was forced to leave, disappearing into the crowd. He knew he had lost his chance forever.